Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. So for those who prefer their analog games to their digital games, Resident Evil might be something that you're not that familiar with. Well, needless to say, it's been around for a number of years, and Resident Evil 2, the game that this is based upon, actually released 21 years ago this month, January. So you might be thinking, why would Steamforged go to all the trouble to make a game, a board game that is, based upon a computer game that came out 21 years ago? Well, that game has been hailed many times as one of the best games ever to be released for the PlayStation console, the original PlayStation that is, and there's a lot of fun memories for it. However, the boys at Steamforged have been very clever, and they've also timed in the release of this to coincide with the Resident Evil 2 Remake, which is released this month, January 2019, on PlayStation 4. So there'll be plenty of people looking at that game and maybe looking at this one at the same time. So for those that aren't too familiar with the original story of Resident Evil 2, the original computer game saw you play the part of Leon S. Kennedy or Claire Redfield trying to escape Raccoon City, where the inhabitants had all been turned into zombies due to a biological weapon, which happened 2 months after the original Resident Evil story. Now, of course, that's not necessarily relevant for the board game, but it does show that they've stuck very closely to the context. So you still play the part of Leon S. Kennedy or Claire Redfield, along with a number of other playable characters, and you're trying to escape Raccoon City by moving through what is essentially a dungeon crawler to escape each scenario. Now, the scenarios in the book do stay quite close to the original PlayStation game, and something I thought was quite neat is, in the original game, you could play as either of those two characters, but the two characters didn't start in the same place, and they each had their own story arc. When you play the game here, the players don't all start at the same square. So for this instance here, we have Leon, who is starting in the upstairs of the building, and we have Claire Redfield, who is starting in the downstairs of the building. And the plan is they have to meet up together and get out of the building together. Just like in the game, there are things to pick up which can improve your health, such as green herbs and red herbs. There's also keys to find to unlock rooms, and there's also medals to find, so very much like the puzzles of the original game. In the original game, there was also points where you could save your progress at typewriters, and in order to do this, you needed to pick up typewriter ribbons, and just again, it's exactly the same in this game here. There's points where you can kind of pause and reset. Now, as I said, the game plays very much like a standard dungeon crawler. There's a few things that basically make it unique to Resident Evil. However, if you're familiar with dungeon crawlers, you'll have a fair idea of what to expect. Each character has 4 actions. One action can be to move one square, it can be to shoot a weapon, it can be use a melee weapon, it can open a door, it can close a door, it can search. So basically you can move up to 4 times, or up to 4 squares, or you can move and shoot, or you can shoot and move. There's a number of different things you can do, but essentially it keeps it quite simple that each character has those 4 moves. After one character has done their moves, there's then a reaction phase where any of the zombies in adjoining tiles, or any that are on the same kind of tile as you, they get to react, and they can kind of shamble forward 1 square, or take a dive at you and try and attack. This gives you the chance to try and evade. So just like in the game, it's not about just blasting your way through this, as you have a limited number of ammo. Once the ammo runs out, you're going to have to try and run away and run past the zombies. That'll make it very hard. Of course, there's places where you can search and try and pick up ammo reloads, just like in the game. So anyone that really is fond of the original source material, you'll love the theme that's around this game. So after every player has taken their turn, it comes to the zombie phase, and you draw a attention card. Now this card can be green, which is basically all clear, everything's okay. There's some amber cards which cause some relatively bad things to happen, and then there's some red cards which cause very bad things to happen. And what this does is it increases a bit of tension through the game, as that you never quite know if something's going to surprise you. So just because the board's being laid out, you never know what's going to appear. Now the rulebook takes you through a first couple of scenarios that really introduce you gradually to the rules. The introduction scenario is pretty hard to get wrong, to be fair, or pretty hard to lose, as the deck is stacked with mainly positive cards. Also, as you go through the scenarios as well, the original 2 don't use this, but once you get into the main story of the game, some of the rooms are classed as green, amber or red, and there is a table to roll on that tells you what happens when you enter that room. So multiple playthroughs of the game are possible even when you're playing the same scenario. You probably won't get that same game twice. Now, as far as the miniatures go, the miniature sculpts are very nice. There's been a little bit of talk online about the scale of the miniatures being a little bit smaller than people were expecting. However, it fits the size of the board. So basically you can have 4 of a human-sized character in one square. You have things like the lickers, which are basically a double size, so you can only have 2 of those in a square. And then there's some bigger monsters in there that take up a whole square. So the board pieces, the miniatures, have been scaled for the game. And they look a little smaller than something like Warhammer 40,000 or any games like that. Certainly Zombicide. But that doesn't make them bad sculpts, and it doesn't make it bad miniatures. The game is quite instinctive to play. The rules are really well laid out, and they do take you by the hand through those first few missions to enable to get you up and playing with the full rules. So for that, I give it a real thumbs up. Now, when it comes to the actual components of the game, this is where I think it lets itself down a little. Now, my main gripe is really with the boards, the tiles, and the doors and the small walls as well. So as you lay it out, you have to put walls in place and you put doors in place. The tiles themselves, the artwork is really nice, and you can see it's been lifted from the computer game itself, so the theme is there again. However, they're really, really dark, almost to the point where some look like there's a black square and you can't see any of the artwork on it. It feels like a bit of a missed trick really, as the game itself isn't really played in pitch black. It's kind of gloomy, but I wouldn't say it was dark. So the tiles could have really done with being lightened up a little to really show off the rooms that are in them. The doors are basically just small cardboard tiles, which basically show where the connections between the rooms are. However, again, because everything is so dark, it's actually quite difficult to see whether a door is open or a door is closed. Now, I'm quite fortunate. I backed the Kickstarter back in November 2017, and it was delivered to me just at the end of December 2018. And I backed, along with the original sort of pledge, I also backed some 3D doors. Now, these really do help, and I would suggest that if you want to go the extra and pimp your game out a little, the doors make a big difference, as they actually open and close, and it's very easy to see which doors are open and which ones are closed. Using the card that comes in the core box, it's not quite so clear. Now, the walls, again, are another thing, and I've seen a few things online about this. Essentially, they're just really thin bits of black cardboard that divide sort of squares. And whilst they are very sort of functional, they don't look like they're going to last very long. And I would have liked to maybe see something like a card standee, maybe with some little plastic feet to represent the walls and make it stand out a little. Again, with the walls being black cardboard on top of tiles that are already pretty dark, it actually can make them quite difficult to see sometimes. Now, all of that said, it is quite cosmetic, and actually the game itself plays really well, so it's definitely worth giving it a try. If you're a fan of the source material, as I mentioned before, it's definitely worth picking this up. Now, as I say, I backed this on Kickstarter, so as you can see on the shelf behind me there, I also got some expansions. Now, I'm assuming that what is in this box is exactly what retail will get, so if you buy this board game, I should say, this is exactly what you'll get. And everything I've shown on the table here is just what comes in this core set. The game does stay very close to the source material, and I think the designers of this game have definitely put a lot of love and care and attention into this, and it's definitely been a bit of a passion project. However, there are some ups and downs to the game. Now, whilst I do really like this game, and I definitely enjoy playing it, there's a couple of things that I just want to kind of make you aware of. One I've already spoken about, which was the tiles, which are quite dark. Again, it doesn't stop you playing the game, but it just doesn't make the game look as nice as it could have done. The other thing is, it's actually quite slow paced. So, as you can only run or you can only move 4 squares, if you move 4 squares, that's all you can do in your turn. You can't shoot or search. So you tend to be kind of moving maybe 1 or 2 squares a turn and maybe trying to attack or trying to evade or searching or opening a door. Now, the original games were quite slow paced. It wasn't kind of like you were running around and blasting and shooting. So just bear in mind that it does sort of last between 90 minutes and 2 hours. So it's not a fast dungeon crawler as such. So I really enjoyed this game. Obviously, I have a lot more to play to really get into it. I haven't gone all the way through the scenarios yet, so maybe there's some scenarios in there that I might not like quite so much as the first few I've played. But overall, really enjoyed this game. If you want to see more of this on the channel, or maybe even see some painting tips on how to paint the miniatures, let me know down in the comments. If you're thinking about picking this game up, let me know down in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.